Hey, everybody. Welcome back for another version of Hey Sawbones, My Story, My Passion. This week's guest, awesome guy. He's a real estate attorney here in Erie, Pennsylvania at the McDonald Illig law firm. Has a wonderful wife, Chris, 5 children. It's a great story. You're going to definitely want to stick around to hear kind of how he grew up, where he grew up, his commonalities with me with basketball, his passion for basketball. He actually coached basketball in this area too. His name is Jim Tui, and he's a great guy. He's a very, very dear friend of mine. I've grown very close to him over the past 6-7 years. I have a ton of respect for him, both personally and professionally, but you are not going to want to miss this episode. Amazing story. He comes from a large family, very prominent father figure who was an attorney up until his mid to late 80s. So stick around. Looking forward to this episode, and I know you guys are really going to enjoy it. Have a great day.
All nurses to the nurses station.
Lawless country people are real close family. Lately some of my kinfolk don't get around too good, you see. When that doctor asked them, son, how'd you get in this condition? They says, hey, Sawbones, I'm just carrying on an old family tradition. They wanna know, Doc, why do you think I got some pain in my joints from years of playing hard in this life that's too short? When that doctor asked me, son, how'd you get in this condition? I says, hey, Sawbones, I'm just carrying on an old family tradition. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Tell me all about it, Doc.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Hey Sawbones, My Story, My Passion. I'm your host, Dr. Ryan Molley, orthopedic surgeon, cutter of bones, entrepreneur, businessman, and most importantly, loving husband and father of 3 busy boys. So I'm really excited about tonight's episode. This is episode 15, by the way. Hard to believe that we started this a couple months ago, and we've done it every single week for 15 episodes straight. And tonight's episode is going to leave everybody out there wanting to hang out with this guy because he is truly the real deal. I like to consider him a local legend. He's from the Erie area. He is a local attorney, real estate attorney, kind of born and bred here. And without further ado, Mr. Jim Tui. How are you, buddy?
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Good to be here.
Thanks for coming on. So
Cool.
Jim, as we always kind of start these out, our guests want to know a little bit more about you, like who you are, what you do, where you're from, kind of the 30,000 foot view, and then we'll get into the nitty gritties with the questions.
All right. I'll start with who I am now. I've been practicing. I'm a partner at a firm, McDonald Illig, which you know.
You're the
well.
second McDonald Illig attorney we've had on this.
I'm sorry for all your audience, attorneys to a minimum. So yeah, I've been there for about 10 years. I came back to Erie 12 years ago. I have 5 kids, 5 children. My oldest is Declan. He's a junior at high school. Then Kate, Ryan, my daughter, and then Nate and Marin. And they are every 2 years, every 2 grades. So we go 11th grade down to 3rd grade. My wife, Christine. We don't live too far from you. And yeah, I think that I've been in Erie all but my phase of life where I was in Chicago. So born and raised here. Went to Cathedral Prep following St. George, so Catholic school kid. Went to the University of Notre Dame for a couple of years. Decided that wasn't going to be for me. Transferred to Gannon for what I thought was going to be a semester. Ended up graduating there. Was a English major. I was intending to be a basketball coach and an English teacher for my life, and I did that for a whole stretch of years. But at one point, Rye, I decided that I wanted to figure out what the world was made of, because Erie's great, but Erie's, we know our community. And I went to law school in Chicago, Loyola, Chicago, and thought that I was going to spend the rest of my life there. I spent 11 years practicing there after I went to Loyola. And then its own long story, moved back to Erie, which I'll skip, with my wife.
We'll get into that with the questions.
At that point, we just had our third. And so Christine and I, after some deliberation, moved back. And now I've been back here since, I feel like 2011. And Erie's been, it's all the stuff that when you grew up in Crawford County, Erie County, you hear great stuff about raising a family there. But when you're in your 20s, sometimes you might question how much is going on. But Erie's been phenomenal to our family. And, we've gotten to know each other since I've returned and you've come. Life is good. Yeah.
So are you thirsty?
Absolutely.
Right?
You know me, man.
So, every episode we do what's called the beverage break. All right.
Okay.
And
let's go.
I ask all my guests, hey, what would you like to drink? What's your favorite cocktail, beer? It doesn't have to be alcoholic, but you're an IPA guy. You kind of like a brother from another mother like me. Sure. And I was just assuming you would want an IPA, and it is middle of October. And I think you were feeling the holiday spirit, so to speak, the seasonal spirit. And you said, well, how about like an Oktoberfest or
Love it.
more of a amber type of seasonal beer? So I've got a couple options for you.
Cool.
And knowing you'll probably drink them all, but no, I'm kidding. So here, let me dig these out.
To that. Love it.
All right. So first option is your Oktoberfest. We've got a Sam Adams Oktoberfest.
Okay.
Second option, I've had this one.
That's a good standard.
Is the Erie Brewing Company Johnny Rails.
I have not had that.
That's a pumpkin ale.
Yeah.
Then we have, got to dig deep into the vault here. If you're more of a cider guy, we've got Red's hard cider. And then we have another type of this is pumpkin ale, Dogfish Head.
Oh.
So, and then if you really like that one, you can have a second one. So,
okay.
What are you thinking there, Jim?
Those are great options. If I was pulling out of my fridge, I'd probably go with the Dogfish Head, because I haven't had their pumpkin, but I like a lot of their beer. But I'm going to stay local. I haven't tried the.
You want the Johnny Rails?
Yeah, let's go with the Johnny Rails. Let's do it.
Let's get you off the rails with the Johnny Rails.
Yeah, I'm going to go pumpkin just because. Right, 'tis the season. Right.
There you go, my friend.
Cheers.
What am I going to do? I almost feel like if you're drinking out of a bottle, I need to drink out of a bottle. Perfect. So I'm going to go with Sam Adams Oktoberfest. There's a really good pumpkin beer out of Pittsburgh. I never remember the name of it. Gosh, it'll come to me at some point.
Yeah.
I had it at Otis 12, which is a local wing place here in Erie. And it was really good. It's one of those beers you can only have like maybe one or two.
Well, that's the way it is with a lot of the pumpkin beers, right?
They're really sweet.
Yeah. But I mean,
cheers, my friend.
It's late October. Let's go. Thank you. Thanks for having me. Thanks for the beverage.
So, Jim, I've known you now for, well, we moved back in 2015. I believe that we were introduced not long after that, probably 2016, probably 2017 at the latest. Mm-hmm. So I've known you for at least 6-7 years, and I've known you personally. I've known you professionally. You've represented me on some real estate transactions over the years. But as you know, we kind of do a question and answer session. I'm going to have you start as my guest, asking me 6 questions, 3 business, 3 personal. Then we'll turn the tables. I'll do the same with you. The one caveat is that if I ask you a question that you're not comfortable answering, you can veto one question.
All
You
right.
get just one though.
Okay.
All right. And for the record, out of your episode number 15, not one person has ever vetoed a question. So
you know what? That's good power. I like it. Maybe I'll be the first. Especially if you cut it, right? And
yeah, Jay, can you edit that?
yeah, no one will know what I'm afraid of then. All right, let's go. So I'm first.
Yeah, you're first.
My pleasure. I'm going to start with something personal.
No, business first.
Well, I know that. Sorry, personal to me, business related. Because I'm in an age where my body's starting to go. I try to keep up with it, but it's going. And my knees have been cranky just in the last half year. Never have been. probably have spent too much time on my feet over the course of my life. Certainly still try and run out in a trail on occasion. What would you tell someone that's about my stage, right? Early 50s, that wants to take care of their knees best they can to prolong what I think is going to be inevitable. At some point, you're going to replace one of my knees.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I mean, I think you first have to get a diagnosis, right? Because you can't really treat or make suggestions when you don't know what's going on, right? So, and I'm not trying to promote coming to see me or anything like that, but if you're any of my family members or a good buddy of mine like you are, I would say just schedule an appointment, come in, let us evaluate you, let us get some x-rays. I don't have x-ray vision, but you can generally get a pretty good idea of what's going on by listening to people, them telling you the stories, like when it hurts, what activities like going up and down stairs really kills me, or flat level ground, or when I twist, things like that. And then what makes it better, what makes it worse. That's one of the things that, like, the art of medicine, everybody gets so caught up on like the objective things, really like looking at an x-ray and saying, do you need a knee replacement or not? But to me, the art of medicine is three things. It's being able to listen to patients. And a lot of physicians, for whatever reason, they're either not strong at that, or they kind of forget that and they try to skip over that. And they try to just go to, let me get some studies, let me get some x-rays, let me get some lab values. But if you listen to a patient, it will almost always inevitably lead you down to like the process of elimination of, it's probably one of these two or three things, right? The second thing is to put your hands on a patient, right? To examine them. And again, it's amazing how many physicians that I've seen over the years that have kind of skipped that step too. And they just jump to looking at x-rays or looking at an MRI report or an MRI image. But you can learn so much from putting your hands on somebody and assessing the stability of their knee. Do they have any what's called crepitance or crunching or cracking in the knees?
is that crepitance?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's like that. It sounds like Rice Krispies or gravel in your knees when you bend it or straighten it. And that's not necessarily indicative of a problem, because
Right.
I have that,
Yeah.
but my knees are fine. It's oftentimes the result of what's called chondromalacia, which is the cartilage usually underneath the kneecap gets a little soft and maybe a little irregular.
Okay.
And when you bend and straighten your knee, it will give that kind of sensation.
I'm guessing, do like the majority of people experience that? At
Yeah,
some point?
yeah. I would say once you get into your probably 30s and 40s.
Because I feel like,
and,
I'm not experiencing it now, but I have. Yep.
yeah. And then the final thing is like what most people do jump to, which is like the objective studies, whether it's x-rays, MRI, CAT scans, rarely, and things like that.
Gotcha. Cool. All right. Well, I mean, so you're telling me I got to come in sometime, right?
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to guess as to what things are.
I hear you.
But,
okay.
and there's lots of things that you can do, well before you're ready for any type of surgery.
Yeah. All right. So can I ask you another business
Sure.
related? These are going to be more like, more 30,000 foot, maybe not the first, but they translate across businesses, right?
Yeah.
You own a business. I'm fortunate to be a partner in a business. So I'm an owner with a bunch of other folks that I like and respect. And it would go into a lot of business fields where we have to be aware of this stuff, right? It's the future.
Yeah.
Like I was thinking on the ride over here, like what in the last 20 years has been like the big sea change? At least in the legal world, this might not have affected the medical quite as much, but like the internet, right? Attorneys had to go from handwriting stuff, dictating. Now some still dictate, but I mean, obviously the internet and the development of computers and the ability to communicate those documents and respond right now changed a lot. So, I mean, what's staring us in the face? There's a couple of biggies. There's AI, there's development of robotics. And I think that a lot of that, even though like society for the most part hasn't quite realized how quick the sea change is going to occur, I think it's going to occur quickly. So like, I'd like to listen to what because this again crosses, I think, all sorts of different businesses. How are you, what's your business going to be 10 years from now? And what are you already kind of trying to do to prepare for it? And if you haven't, what do you foresee yourself doing to prepare for that?
Yeah. So a couple of things that you touched on right out of the get-go was you mentioned, it used to dictate. Same thing with us, right? So when we were charting, we would have paper charts. We would have to pull them for each clinic. We would use a dictaphone, and then it would go to a transcriptionist. You'd have a little tape, and then they would transcribe your notes. You'd review it. But now we've gotten to the point now where we're either doing that on our phone, still a transcriptionist, or more frequently we're going to software that is voice recognition, almost like Siri.
Sure.
There's different platforms. Dragon is one of them. And electronic medical records has been another major change in the medical world, right? So paper charts are a thing of the past.
Right.
Very rarely, and we were kind of forced out of that, by the medical community to make that transition, or else we would have had some financial penalties. So that's kind of been more of the business side of things. But from a technological side of things, there's been a lot of changes. You mentioned robotics. AI is huge. That's coming, and it's already here for a lot of stuff. VR, so virtual reality. There's some really cool things out there where surgeons can wear goggles, and think about like in your car when you have heads up, right? So you're driving, and there's like a hologram projected onto your windshield, so you can see your speed, so that you don't have to look down at your dashboard to see what it is. So that's coming up where you can actually be looking at the patient's knee or hip, and they will project a hologram on there, and it will tell you the position of where you should put the components relative to certain landmarks, and you don't have to take your eyes off the field, right? There was computer navigation, which is still around, but that was probably a good 10 years ago. I think robotic surgery is probably one of the biggest ones that you hear about right now.
Sure.
I'm pretty old fashioned though. I will tell you, I don't use any of it. I'm not saying that I never will, but in my opinion, right now, robotic surgery is much more marketing than it is clinically applicable. And if I had to have my hip or knee done, I would want to have a high volume surgeon that specialized only in hip or knee replacement, did a ton of them, high volume, and was very, very experienced with revision situations and has years under their belt, right? As opposed to, and I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with the younger surgeon, because we've all been there before, but relying on, technology, whether it's just robotics or VR or AI or augmented reality, those are things that I think are cool tools. They're gadgety, but you want to have that pilot that has the ability to fly the plane without putting it in an autopilot.
Yeah.
Be able to land the plane in a storm and not panic.
I mean, do you think this is going to be the case 10 years from now? Who knows?
We're
predicting a little bit, but
I think that it is really taken off.
Yeah.
And I think that most surgeons right now are doing it because their competition's doing it, not necessarily because they believe that the outcomes will be better. And there are plenty of studies out there showing that the outcomes, both short-term and long-term outcomes, survivorship is no different with really technically brilliant, what I would call manual or conventional surgery versus computer-assisted or robotic-assisted.
Yeah. Interesting.
And there's a lot of like downside to it too, in my opinion, which a lot of people don't quite understand. So to do computer-navigated surgery or robotic surgery, number one, it's a huge expense, right? To get a robot, it's about $1 million. Number two, it takes a lot longer to do because you have to register all these points on the robot. Oftentimes you have to get a CAT scan or an MRI before the operation, which I don't ever really do, to get different data points. Then you have to register them. Oftentimes you have to make separate incisions to put sensors in there so that the computer can actually know exactly where it is relative in space. And to watch a robotic surgery, to me, is one of the most painful things I've ever seen because it's guiding you. It's not like the surgeon is not touching anything. They're pulling the trigger. They're trying to make the cut with the saw. But if you literally get it off by like 1 degree, it will just turn the saw off.
Right.
And it won't allow you to complete the cut. So what would take a robotic surgeon oftentimes, or a traditional surgeon, maybe 2 or 3 minutes to do a step of a total knee replacement, I've seen take 15 to 20 minutes for a robotic surgeon to do that same 2 to 3 minute process.
So, but is what you're like? I don't think you said this specifically, but what I was hearing is that there's a certain demand for it. Like some people think that that's the way to go.
No, I think there's surgeons that truly believe, and I do think that there is value, right? There is definite feedback. There's data that shows that these are very accurate procedures with a robot. But there's also data out there equally as much of, that shows that good traditional manual instrumentation can get you the same, if not better results.
Yeah.
If performed technically how you should perform it.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
And every minute that you're in the operating room with a wound open, your chance of infection goes up dramatically.
Okay.
And the cost, 1 minute in the operating room is generally $90 to $100. I mean, it's not cheap.
It's interesting to hear it quantified that way, but I'm sure that's why you guys have to monetize it.
Yeah.
You're going to laugh at this, a little break in the action. I have one more thing to ask you, but like I'm finding myself, because as you well know, this wing here needs to be replaced. And I should have thought of this, but I let you sit on the left or the right because that's where you sit. But my greatest weakness is this movement with that shoulder. So every time I've had to turn
that's
for a
why
beer,
I put you in that seat.
that's every time I've turned for a beer, I'm like going like this. After 2 times, I'm like, why? If anybody was actually paying attention, they'd be like, that guy just, that's weird. Why is he turning to get his beer that way?
Well, it's similar because my neck is bad from what I do on a daily basis. And it's way harder for me to turn to the left. I can turn to the right easily, but to the left is limited.
We
and
didn't
it hurts.
position ourselves well, man.
No, but this is kind of like my home base.
No, I know. I'm still going to get to my beer. Trust me.
Oh, I know it's not going to stop you.
All right.
You're not going to ask me a shoulder surgery question, are you? Because
I
would probably just amputate it. That would be my suggestion.
But it isn't. Again, this is more like the higher level. It's not going to be the macro level of what you do. But I've watched you. I've never asked you this question, but I've watched you and some of the people you work with, and you've engendered tremendous loyalty in the people that work with you. I would say for, they go hand in hand. What's been, going forward in anything we do? We're talking about that in legal practice all the time. The next generation, which is what new people doing what we do should be called, right? They see the world differently than we do. But you've done a good job. I've witnessed the camaraderie, the loyalty that some people have. I'm sure it doesn't go throughout the organization, but what do you think you've done that's helped create that?
The culture. And it's not necessarily been easy, but so when I started Whole Health back in 2018, it was a vision that I had in my head, and it started way before 2018, but that's when it officially opened the doors. And it was a place that would give the region's best. At that time, it was just hip and knee replacements. Best hip and knee replacement care. It's now grown to generalized orthopedics. But it was also simultaneously a place that you would want to work and be a part of. And that's what I mean by the culture. So there really is, and I know people say this all the time, but there really is no job that I feel is below or beneath anybody, myself included, whether that's in the office, whether that's in, I was scrubbing a toilet today in my office because it wasn't clean enough.
No surprise.
Right. And I'm a detail guy. So that needed to be, because that doesn't present well. And at the hospital, if we're not moving as efficiently as I would like that, I'm grabbing a mop, I'm putting sheets on a bed, I'm helping to open trays, I'm wheeling patients back. That was something that my mentor, Dr. Lombardi, instilled in me, probably 15, 16 years ago. And he said, Ryan, there's no point or no job that is too small. And if you think that way, you can't even think about bitching when things aren't moving as quickly as you want them to, because you're not willing to do the things which may seem menial tasks, but are necessary tasks to keep the train on the tracks and to keep the efficiency going. So for me, it's like leading by example and, getting to know each of my employees, and really respecting them, because it's one thing that I've learned too, is like, respect isn't just like something that you just get. You have to earn it, no matter who you are, where you are, even if you're the owner of the business, right? That, because I have over 30 employees, but like, it's not something these days. I think it's a different generation than our parents grew up with, whereas like, if you're older than somebody, you just kind of demand respect. And I'm at that point now where like I'm older than a lot of my employees, but it is really how you treat people. So I feel like treating people really well, taking care of your staff, as if they were your family members. Obviously, you have to create boundaries, though. Like you're not, crossing over and you're not treating them exactly like your family. But just the incentivization that we do, whether it's with bonuses, whether it's 401ks, profit sharing, things like that. And then, just creating an environment that's warm and welcoming to patients and staff alike.
No, I mean, you touched on one thing toward the end there, right? There's a balance you have to strike. It's that you create the right culture, but I mean, you're still the owner. You're still the boss. So, yeah, interesting to hear.
Yeah, it's been a learning curve too. Like one of my employees today, she's Allie. She's actually our director of marketing. She had no idea my affiliation with Edgewood. And we were sitting there. She's like, I didn't know that you were like a part owner of Edgewood. I'm like, yeah. And she's like, and I kind of told her the whole story.
Yeah.
And she goes, how did you learn all the business things? And I was like, well, I didn't go to school for business, and we don't learn any business in medical school, which is really, really unfortunate.
Right.
It's kind of like on the job training.
Yeah.
And for me, it's been like trial and error. Throw a lot of mud, paint, whatever you want at the wall. Some of it sticks, some of it doesn't. And you learn from your mistakes. And I've made plenty of them along the way. And you're like, okay, that worked. I think I'm going to do something similar to that. Or that didn't work. That really didn't work. I'm not going to do that again. Or if I try something like that, I have to obviously make some changes.
Yeah. Instinct. I was with you a little bit on that journey.
You've been there
questions, a lot. Instinct. Yeah. And then hopefully you
I do follow my gut a lot. Like if it feels like this is what needs to be done, I do it. I'm a firm believer. One of the things that I get annoyed with the most is when people get paralysis by analysis. They overanalyze things and then they hesitate. They don't make decisions. They lose opportunities. I've never been guilty of that. I definitely, some people may deem me, and I think sometimes my wife, Karen, would say, you're a little impulsive with things. And I say, well, it's not that I don't think about it. I think about, and I calculate my risks, but I'm not going to lose an opportunity by sitting there and analyzing and saying, should I do it? Should I not do it? Like I make a decision, I go for it. If it didn't work, that's okay. And you pivot.
Fair enough. Cool. Thank you.
Personal stuff?
Yeah, sure.
Fire away.
I mean, I'll start with an obvious one for me and you, but I've never asked this question. As anybody that would be paying attention to this would know, you have a preference toward a certain basketball player, and I think that's carried a little bit to a city. You and I share that allegiance.
Yeah.
But like, why do you have it out for LeBron?
Oh wow, that is not where I saw this going. Did you talk?
We are in Erie, Pennsylvania, man.
To Bill Spiros beforehand?
No.
And I was like, oh, this is exciting. We're gonna talk about Chicago. We're gonna talk about Jordan. And you spun it at the very last minute.
I did.
Oh well, I'm gonna get you when it's my turn to ask questions.
Fair enough.
What's my problem with LeBron? All right, first things first. Amazing basketball player.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say he's not. Mm-hmm. He easily makes my top 50. I mean, top 10. Maybe my top 5. I'll give top 5.
Well played.
But no way, no how am I ever going to put him as the GOAT. Okay. There's just so many reasons why. Number one, look at his record championship wise, right? Yes, he can win games, but he doesn't win a lot of championships. How many has he been to? Like 10? How many has he won? 3.25 maybe.
Is it 4? Wait,
I'll give him the bubble doesn't
Lakers,
count.
4. Yeah,
right. The bubble was like 20 games and they had no fans and they had a weird tournament.
Okay.
But,
so you give him 3.25.
Yeah, as a quarter of a championship.
Right.
But I also don't really care for like the way that he did things when he left Cleveland to go to Miami. I'm a little bit more of an old school traditionalist. Right. You never would have ever seen Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, Michael Jordan leave their team to go team up with their buddies to try to win a championship because that's exactly what he did. He had to go to Miami, team up with Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh to win his first championship. And then when he did that, all things are great. Now I'm going to come back to Cleveland because that's where I'm from. Like well, you left him once. You come back, you win a championship. I'll give you credit for that one. But then when he left them, it was like, you broke up with the girl twice? Seriously? To go to LA to get more showtime, and then team up with some more superstars to win 1.25 championships. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just, again, and then he gets on his little platforms where he thinks that he should be talking about certain life events that are completely irrelevant to what he does. I'm not to the point where I'm saying, hey, shut up, dribble your basketball, but I don't care what you think about this, LeBron. Like, do what you do. If you want to have that opinion, that's fine, and you can voice it, but like, don't expect the rest of the world to just buy into it because LeBron James, a very good basketball player, does that. And if Michael Jordan did the same thing, I would be like, you know what, Jordan, I don't really care what you think or believe politically or this or that.
He's just been so the opposite of that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That I asked a good question.
You did. You got me going now, Jim.
So actually, I was thinking about that before and putting together the few things that was me throwing against the wall with you. And I was like, why do I, and I'm answering my own question now, so bear with me. We both like one thing about Michael Jordan, and it was that, like, if my life depended on it, who would you pick? Who's the killer? That guy on the court is a killer. LeBron, I qualify more as like a savant, right?
Yeah.
But yet, because he sees the floor in a way that nobody else has.
I would say like Magic saw the floor kind of like him,
fair,
right?
fair,
There's a couple, but better than Jordan. I'll give LeBron credit for that.
Right. Savant, but yet someone that throughout the course of his career has absolutely won a lot of basketball games. But like, there's always been something, right? There was those Cleveland days before he went to Miami, and then starting at Miami, and then he turned a corner. But there's always like some sort of game being played out there where, you know, you want the guy that in the moment is completely and entirely absorbed in that moment and thinks they're the best player on the floor and thinks they're going to win that game. Sometimes that can hurt if it's someone that's irrationally confident, but when it's really one of the best players or the best player like Jordan,
I put Kobe in that vein too, right? Like I would take Kobe in a high pressure game winning situation well before I would take LeBron. I'd
allow who LeBron plays with and who Kobe plays, because Kobe also could go 7 for 27.
I'm saying
he wouldn't be afraid.
Last shot,
right? He wouldn't be afraid.
And you know that person going to take the last shot. It doesn't matter if you have John Paxson, Steve Kerr, or you have Ray Allen, one of the best, right. Stephen Curry. Like, no, Jordan's taking it. It's 1-on-1.
Right.
I'm taking Jordan. Then I'm taking Kobe. LeBron is probably in my top 10, but he's lower on that list.
That's why I mentioned it. My last comment. That's why I mentioned, like, it depends on who he plays with, because he really is going to make the right basketball play, which means that, honestly, I'd much rather have been his teammate. Jordan, you better have been of a certain mindset to be able to handle the crap he throws your way. And you're not going to get the ball quite as much. LeBron's always... Anyhow.
That's a good point.
I took us down a road.
One more point I want to make make about that, though. You kind of got onto the competitive nature, and quite honestly, that's why this guy was so valuable and important to me growing up, because he is one of the main reasons that I have the competitive nature, the competitive drive, the like grit, the never say die. Right. Whereas like LeBron, he's sitting on the sidelines, they're losing by 20, he's joking, laughing with his teammates. Do you think Jordan ever would have been caught sitting on the sidelines, joking, having fun? No, you can joke and have fun when you win the championship, and you can drink champagne and pour it on each other's heads. But LeBron, it's not, he doesn't take it as seriously as Jordan ever did, or Kobe.
I think I told you this. So my first year in Chicago, my first year of law school, was the final championship. And, I was in the red at that point in life. So I wasn't going to several Bulls games. I think I was up in the last row for a couple that year.
You at least got to make it there.
No,
right?
Totally. And, but I wasn't a Bulls fan at that time. I always kind of rooted for Jordan. I actually waited till he left because I didn't want to be a bandwagon guy. Oh, I get too worried about that. But I loved that year. That was a fun year, and I loved rooting for the Bulls. So
it was 97, 98.
Yeah. So his last one, though, it was 97, 98. So that was my first year of law school. Thank you. And then I decided to start like
Utah Jazz
all in the next year, and it was the Baby Bulls with Curry and Tyson Chandler, and they struggled for a long time right there, man.
Yeah, they
So
did.
I had some pain, and then fell in love with Derrick Rose, and here we are. All right, so you ready for some more?
Yeah. Keep them coming.
These are personal. I'll start with the sports one, but they're going to go down the same path. You're off top of your head, right? You can't overthink this. You have to make the decision within 5 seconds. Your best.
Jay, put the timer on when
Yep.
after he asks
Tick,
us.
tick. Your best sport memory, personal memory.
Oh gosh, it's too
So-
bad because I just shared this on like 2 episodes ago. It was actually Jay's
okay.
episode.
Then hit me with it. I have some more to come off it. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
so it was a 3-on-3 tournament, and I apologize to the listeners out there,
Oh,
but
see, I don't know this, so
this is going to be good.
Go.
So- and
I'll give you
it's
some crap.
even more special
If
because
it had
was
to do with you shooting a fadeaway 20-footer that drops, then
probably 35 feet about 10 times in a row against Cathedral prep grads.
Oh,
So it was the best.
So wait, where was the tournament?
Family First, the old outdoor rims. It was 3-on-3. Those
How old are you at this time? You're in college?
I was college.
Yeah.
I was out of high school.
Okay.
I was probably 20, 21.
Yeah.
And still playing a lot of ball. Still
some buddies from like that you played with in school or whatever.
Yeah, so actually at the time he wasn't my brother-in-law. He's my brother-in-law now. He married my youngest sister Kristen, who played basketball at Mercyhurst.
Okay.
She was a heck
I
of a
never
shooter.
knew that.
Yeah, she
Your
led.
youngest sister played hoops at Mercy.
She was number 3 in the nation, Division II for 3-point percentage her freshman or sophomore year when she played with Teresa Zumagala. Remember her?
Oh,
She won a championship for
So
Mercyhurst Prep.
she was a way better shooter than you.
Yes. I'll tell you what, though, I was streaky. She was very
Right.
consistent.
Okay.
I was that, I can
She
make
just had it
8 in a
down.
row,
She played with-
or I can miss
Interesting.
10 in a row.
We've never. That's kind of the fun of doing a podcast.
Yeah, you learn a lot.
Is
But
that I never knew you were a sister. Okay, so to
we're
your
up
day.
there. We're playing.
Who are you playing with? I like these details.
So Mike Burrows, who will be a future podcast guest.
Okay.
Short guy. He was more of a distributor.
Yep.
He likes to think he can shoot, but Mike, you couldn't shoot that well.
All right.
And kind of slow
Mike,
on defense. But
You'll have your chance at rebuttal. It sounds like.
but we played well together.
Yeah.
We had chemistry. My brother-in-law Justin Held, who was he's a little shorter than me, but really good defender, gets a lot of rebounds, good down low, and just a very solid like fundamental.
Where do you
player.
meet your sister at Mercyhurst?
I introduced him actually
cool.
from playing on 3-on-3s.
All right, fair enough.
So we come up against Julian Blanks,
Ah.
RJ Fiorelli,
Oh,
and
RJ's a
and-
buddy.
and Graham Witherspoon.
Okay.
And I'm like,
those are some good
I'm like,
players
oh,
right
this
there, man.
this is gonna be quick. they're gonna buzzsaw us. They're gonna take us out quickly.
Yeah.
And it was one of those times, kind of like, and I said this to Jay too. I was like, the member guess when Pete and I won that. It just like everything aligned, the stars aligned, the planets aligned for that one moment, and that moment was short, but it was for that game. I don't think I missed a 3, and they were deep. They were 10 feet beyond,
Right.
hand in the face. And if you hit the rim there, it would have bounced into outer space because they were triple rims, metal backboard, metal post,
Wait, so
no
it was
bounce.
outdoors?
Outdoor 3-on-3.
At Family First.
Yeah. Up by
I
those
never played outdoor.
dormitories up there.
Oh, yeah, those hoops are there now. I never played.
Yeah,
Okay.
they're horrible,
Yeah,
especially
no,
for shooters.
Which is typical for any. I mean, yeah.
yeah, you would think you'd see that in like New York City, right?
Right,
Like-
right,
like
right.
Rucker Park or whatever that place is.
Sure,
where they
sure,
play.
sure.
And
was
thank
your
God
day.
thank God I didn't hit the rim because everything went through. And the funny thing is like no one was really watching other than maybe some of the prep fans because they're like, oh, they're gonna kill these farm boys, right?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden they're like, holy cow, you see, and then things are talking. By the end, the whole court was surrounded
Yeah.
by people. And then I'm like, yeah, living on cloud 9. Well, the next game we played another prep team, Keith Neese, John Trokey, and I can't remember their third player. They crushed us.
Probably Mike Shezakowski. I know,
Maybe,
Yeah.
but they crushed us.
Yeah.
And Keith,
Smart group.
quite
of
a bit
players.
shorter than me,
Sure.
watched the game where we crushed the other guys.
Yeah, yeah.
Did not even let me like get a shot off. He was in my face the whole time.
Yeah.
He just knew how to defend me, and because I wasn't super quick or couldn't get around him that easily, and it was a pitiful performance.
And I said Mike Shezakowski. It's actually his brother, Mike. So I was going to say, that those guys are the guys that played. You
Kobe.
mentioned him earlier,
Yeah.
Kobe. Yeah. So I said Mike. Mike was a year older than me, Shezakowski at prep.
But
And
his
then
younger
his
brother?
younger brother, would
Okay.
have been with that crew. Those
What's
three.
his name?
Brian. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm sure it probably was.
Yeah, and he's coached women's hoops at St. George and with the Irish for a while. So anyhow, yeah, I'm sure.
And Keith played at Mercier's. He was a year ahead of me, so I got to know him there. And he's just a really hard-nosed player. Fundamentally very sound, doesn't make a lot of mistakes.
No, totally. Yeah, you're talking. I played. Yeah, I've watched. You're talking prep basketball players.
I know.
When I was those days, I was still around.
I got to see if I can get some film of that game against Julian, though, because that you would have been impressed.
You should have retired right then. You should have just walked off.
You know, you've been really kind of giving it to me tonight. So you don't have you watched any of these episodes?
And I'm not done yet. No.
Oh, good, because I'm not done either.
All right, fair enough. Yeah, that's why you go second. Isn't it? All right. No, continuing down the best of, right? I don't want this one's gonna be tough because I don't want it to be work because you'd be able to pick it easy, but like a best academic moment right off the top of your head.
Easy. It was when I had the highest score in the nation on our orthopedic boards. And that's
actually
all orthopedic residents that take it when you graduate from your residency. And why it was so much more gratifying. I was a decent student. I was never the best test taker. I was never the smartest, but I worked really, really hard. And when I first came into my residency, again, a little redundant for some of our listeners, but when I came in, I didn't really learn how to learn or take tests until each year of my residency, I got better and better and better. And I got more focused because I was like doing what I loved, right? To get through undergrad, I just kind of did what I needed to do, but I wasn't super passionate about it. When I got into med school, I would do really good on the things that I enjoyed. Anatomy, physiology, things like that. But things that I didn't really enjoy, pharmacology, like the chemistries. It just wasn't something that I cared too much about. I would do okay. I'd get B's, but I wasn't crushing it. So orthopedics, I found what I loved. I started to crush it each year. But my program director, I didn't have the best MCAT scores. I didn't have the best any of that. And my co-resident was brilliant, had the highest scores in the country, like MCATs, this, that. So when we came in, he goes, Ryan, you're the workhorse. Tyler, you're the show horse. And boy, did that get under my skin. But you know what? It was a great thing that he told me because it motivated me. And it got me so freaking fired up that I was like, by the time I'm done, I'm going to show him that I'm more than a workhorse. And yes, I was a workhorse. But like, to me, it was a little demeaning. It was like, you were going to let you do all the hard work, but like the glory is going to go to this guy.
Yeah.
And then, so when I got that, they get the program directors get the results almost simultaneously as when we get them. We get them in the mail. And I remember I opened them up and Karen was there and she's like, how'd you do? She's like, did you pass? I'm like, yeah, I passed. And she's like, did you do okay? I'm like, yeah, I did okay.
So they tell you right on the
Oh yeah. And you're ranking.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, this has got to be a typo.
Right.
Right. Because I studied and hard, but I was like, I knew who I was going up against because it's not just it's all the residents in the country.
Yep.
And there was guys that were way smarter than me. But yeah, it was just one of those moments. It was my Julian Blanks.
No, I didn't realize I was asking you such a clear, like
easy.
Yeah, right. Because it wouldn't be for a lot of people. You'd have to sit there and think for a second or two. But no, that makes sense. That was pretty easy. All right. So I've hit you with a few. I mean, is there room for any more?
Yeah,
here?
you can do one more if you want.
All right. Best hunting moment.
Oh, easy.
Which is not my world. Go. See,
Yeah.
I'm asking you. I'm spoon feeding.
So we actually were supposed to record this last night. Jim was gracious enough to give me a rain check on that because, I just had a hard day at work. I came home. I had a throbbing headache. I just didn't feel great. And it wasn't going to be good.
And my schedule's so open that Ryan knew that I'd be able to just shift.
Hardly.
No,
So
best life.
I was shocked. I said, any chance we could do this tomorrow? And for those of you that know me, I usually go to bed. I'm in bed by like 8:00.
I knew this was late.
But
Yeah.
I said, I got to do something to be able to keep me up. So right after work today, I had clinic. I hadn't been out. It's October 11th today.
Yeah.
We're 2 weeks into archery season. Haven't been out once. And it's my favorite time to hunt, favorite time to be out in the woods, but my schedule's been ridiculous. I've traveled 3 out of 4 weeks. Tomorrow I go to Phoenix for 4 out of 4 weeks, and then I'm done with work travel for a while. But I said, I got to get out in the woods. I don't care if I see anything. I just got to get out in the woods. It's like my sanctuary.
Yep.
So I got out there tonight. But to answer your question, best moment was, gosh, this must have been 15, almost 20, maybe 20 years ago. You know, there was a period where I hunted when I was young and kind of through high school. And then when I was in college.
Your dad, a hunter?
Yeah. He started when I was 12. He never hunted before that. It was, I really wanted to do it.
Oh, wow.
So I took the hunter safety. Where I went to school, it wasn't an option. Every kid in the school took hunter safety.
Right.
So he knew I wanted to do it. And we've been hunting with the same group of like his old teacher buddies, Melvin Smith, Jeff Deerdorf, some shout outs out there. I just texted Mel the other 2 days ago, just said, hey, I got some land that you're going to help me close on. But long-winded story. So painting the picture, it's my dad. We're hunting, rifle season. It's cold. It's snowy. You know, we all look forward to coming inside for lunch. And my mom would always do a fantastic spread. She'd cook chili. She'd cook soup. The guys would bring stuff. You know, you have like a charcuterie board. You'd be eating deer jerky, deer bologna, vegetables, dip. There'd always be dessert, you know, because you burn a lot of calories out there walking the woods, driving deer. So, and I was like the youngest, but the most serious about it. The other guys were like, it's cold out there. Like, let's stay in here a little bit longer. I'm like, guys, you know, early bird gets the worm. And so I was always the first guy in the woods, and I'm always the last guy out of the woods.
You're an early bird get the worm guy in a lot of
for facets. Sure. So I was like, screw you guys, I'm going out. Yeah. And they're like, yeah, we'll be out in a little bit. So I literally went, got my gun, loaded it, and there's a huge field behind my parents' house. To the one far corner, it's about 200 and almost 300 yards, 285 yards, I think. And the reason I know the distance is I came out, I'm turning around the corner of the barn, and I looked down to the corner of the field down by the gas line. I remember this like it was yesterday. And I see this group of deer running 285 yards away. Or not running, but just kind of like slowly walking. And I'm like, two of them, I did not even need to get my scope up on them. I'm like, those are massive bucks. So I'm like, they're definitely legal. So I pulled up, I leaned against the corner of the barn. It was so quick. It was just like no time to think, just go, right? I pulled up, boom, fired once. The one deer that I was aiming at, it jumped up in the air.
Wait, sorry. For a non-hunter, how far did you say you were?
285 yards. It's almost 3 football field lengths.
Yeah, right. So I thought you were going to tell me that they came closer.
No. They were cutting this way, going away from me. They were going into the woods. So it was like, shoot now or lose this opportunity. So I leaned up against the barn. It's not like I can call them. I see what they're doing. I have a very short window. I'm like, go. You react. Ask questions later. Shot once. See the deer jump in the air. I'm like, son of a gun, I missed it. I shoot again. And I'm like, I missed it. And then the deer are gone. And they all go into the woods. I'm like, oh my gosh. Not maybe 5 minutes later, it was less than that. The door opens. And the guys are like, you shooting something? I'm like, oh yeah. They're like, what was that? It was like a huge buck. I'm like, all right, we're coming. We're going to help you try to find this thing. So all of us go down there. And there's probably 5 or 6 of us. We go down to the corner of the field by the gas line. And we're looking for blood. I'm kind of getting discouraged, and they're like, well, where did they go in? And I'm like, well, here's the tracks. They went in right here. And, you know, I'm looking just where I shot. I'm trying to find blood, but there's so many prints. And all of a sudden my dad goes, hey, Ryan. He's like, you got him. And I walk over. He didn't go into the woods 5 or 6 feet. It was in some like goldenrods. So I couldn't see it. Yeah. And it was a massive 12 point that is now hanging on my wall upstairs. Jay, I'll get you a photo of that.
So would you have, had you not been, you weren't going to go, you didn't think you got him, right? You weren't going to go try and track it.
Oh no, I would have continued looking, but they all.
No, I mean like when they came out initially and we're let's go.
No. It doesn't work that way. Like you could see where they're going and you could say, all right, they may circle around, but you're not going to like chase them or follow them.
Yeah.
You kind of have to anticipate.
No, I understood that. I was curious because I think you said that the guys came out and said, let's go look. I mean, did we hear you shoot? I didn't know if you were going to go look.
Oh, I was absolutely going to go look. And they just heard it and they were so close.
Yeah.
Because I was maybe 50 feet at most
So that
from the
to
house.
this day 12 point. I mean, yeah, I've seen enough racks. I haven't been out in the field, but I know enough.
Yeah, and it was
Very
just a
cool.
beautiful deer. It was very symmetric.
Yeah,
it
yeah.
was like one of those once in a lifetime.
Well, I imagine it to be like a good hunting story, right? I mean,
To this day, every time we're talking for 20 straight years now, same group of guys have come. A couple of the guys have passed away, but there's the three guys, my dad, Jeff Deerdorf, Mel Smith, John McCaskey, who father of Kristen McCaskey, grade younger than me. He stopped hunting with us probably 3 or 4 years ago, but the other three guys, every time that we have lunch, we talk about that story. And it's like, do you remember the
so we
time?
annually still with that
Oh,
crew.
yeah.
And are you young? Are you the youngest that does it?
No, a little guy called Luca Mali is
Right,
now,
you bring the voice.
he loves hunting.
No surprise there.
He's
There's no surprise.
our
there.
outdoorsman.
Yeah.
The other two could care less about it.
Oh, that's too funny. All right. Well, I mean, cheers.
It's role reversal time.
That's my gamut of questions.
Okay.
So yeah.
So business
Spin
stuff
it.
first, okay? And then we're gonna have some fun taking you apart. But business stuff first. So you mentioned, you went to Notre Dame for a couple years. Did you play quarterback there?
No.
No.
Is this business or is this personal?
It's leading to business.
Sorry.
So
My
I
snort
just-
snuck out. So yeah, they're
So you went to Notre Dame, then you went to Gannon, but you taught for several years and coached high school basketball.
yeah, correct.
You kind of went through this at the very beginning, but like, what was it that really made you say, like, did you not enjoy teaching? Did you have a buddy that was an attorney? Like, what made you think of law school? Like, what did you have an uncle that I know your dad was an attorney for decades in the Erie area? Was it your dad?
Yeah.
Who was your influence?
Yeah, my dad, it might have been a subconscious influence, but because of what he did, for whatever reason, I just didn't want to do that. Oh boy, how do I tell this in a quick version of it? I loved teaching, and I was a teacher at Fort LaBeouf, and it's still today when I go to the Fort LaBeouf High School for a game or whatever. It's just a cool, unique school because it's got the hunting vibe in a big way, right?
Yeah, it's similar
first
in
day of the
size, I
season's
believe.
off. Yeah. But yet it's got like a very different community in Summit. So at least from a demographic perspective, it's kind of diverse in that regard. But Waterford's a very proud community. It's been there for a long time. I enjoyed being there, enjoyed my 2 years there because I got way into it. So I was the head high school basketball coach. I taught 7th and 8th grade English. But yet I'd already come back from Notre Dame, not for indiscretion, but by choice. But I still think there was probably a part of me that felt a nod to figure out what the world was made of. And so that was the debate. After my first year of teaching and coaching, I just said, you know what? I think I want to go to law school. And so I took an LSAT read a book at coffee shops on my own, and got myself ready for it. And then the second school year started, and I was like, I don't want to go to law school. I mean, I had energy for it. Basketball season came around. I love this. Yet I'd already paid for and signed up for the LSAT. So I went and took it on a Saturday morning at Gannon. I was the last person that walked in. Everybody had 18 pencils. I had one.
Shocking. Jim Tui is the last person walking.
Well, at that day,
Unless Karen Molly was taking the LSATs.
Oh,
You
man.
guys would have been fighting for the
my
last
girl
seat in
Karen.
there.
Thank you, Karen, for taking some pressure off me. So
Hold on real quick before you say that, because
Please.
she was like, Jim, what time is he supposed to come over? And this was before we moved it to
Oh,
8:30.
don't.
I said 8 o'clock. She goes, you know he's not coming over at 8 o'clock. He's going to be at least 20 to 30
I
minutes
pulled
late.
in when you switched it to 8:30. I pulled in at 8:31, so
Yeah.
it wasn't too bad. So
Good.
thank
All right,
you.
sorry to interrupt.
No.
Keep going.
So walk in. It was for a different reason at that age because I actually went out the night before because I wasn't thinking I was going to law school. And went in with one pencil. Everybody 18 took the LSATs, and so then basketball season started, and I was teaching. I was way into the hoop season. And you had to apply for law schools in January. And my dad said to me, don't not apply because you just don't find the time. Right? Don't not go because you don't find the time to apply is what he told me. Very wise. And I'm like, all right, Dad, I'll suck it up. Have I told you this before?
No.
All right, because it's actually pretty. So I picked a day, late January. It was right around my birthday. My birthday is January 28th to go to a coffee shop. There used to be a coffee shop where, oh, darn it, the restaurant that's kitty corner from the baseball stadium. Cloud.
Yeah,
Nine.
yeah. It's like a wine bar now, right? Yeah.
It used to be a coffee shop. So I go in there one night in the winter, January. And because I'd been in Boston, Chicago, wanted to go to a big city. So I'd like 5 Chicago, like 5 Boston apps. I had Dickinson, which is Penn State, and I had Notre Dame because I still had an affinity for the Irish. And so I'm like 12. I'm not going to complete 12 apps. So I'm like Boston or Chicago. Literally, this is how it went. All right, Chicago. I threw all the Boston in the garbage.
You didn't even do like 3 and 3.
No.
You're like, it's all or nothing.
I was done. And then, honestly, this is
You
what
didn't
happened.
know your wife at this point, did you?
No.
Yeah. Okay.
And so then next was I pulled out Chicago's. University of Chicago was the first one. University of Chicago was a top 5 school. Didn't know how I did in my LSATs, but I felt like I did pretty well that day. And I felt like, I was good academically. So I was probably going to apply just to see. And the letter that they were sent, having you provided the people that were going to, so they had a pre-prepared letter that you were going to give the people that were going to write your recommendation, was so arrogant. I was like, I can't go to school with kids like that. So I threw that one out, literally. Northwestern came out next. I was kind of excited about Northwestern. It was due, and like I think it was due the next day. So I must have been in January 30. It was due January 31. Garbage. So now I'm down to
You're like, where's the Boston ones?
now I'm down to Loyola, Chicago, DePaul, Kent, and Chicago, Notre Dame and Dickinson. And those are the 5 I applied to. So anyhow, basketball season ended, and this is where I'll end the story with you because you'll appreciate the spiritual component of it. And I just told this story on Saturday at the St. Alphonsus Oktoberfest for the first time in forever. So I apply. Basketball season ends. I'm still torn. I've been debating it. I go to Mass at St. George by myself. Mom and Dad are out of town. God speaks to me or whatever, right? I'm supposed to teach and coach. I leave that day. I went home to my mom and dad's, right? Because I had an apartment. But I go to my mom and dad's. They're out of town. I had a cup of coffee. I had the Sunday paper, which I love to read, beginning to end when I can get it. Notre Dame Hoops was actually on TV. I kicked my feet up. At some point during that, the phone rings. I answer it. Father Larry Richards, who was very important in my life. He's now the pastor at St. Alphonsus here in Erie. He's calling for my mom and dad. But he also knew that like I was contemplating leaving town. I don't see him nearly as much as I used to. Father Larry gives me the business whenever I do see him, and that's what I saw on Saturday when the story came up. So I'm excited. I say to him, hey, I made the decision in Mass this morning. I'm going to stay and teach and coach, thinking that's a great vocation. He's going to be fired up. No, I'm not accepting that decision. I don't believe that. You're supposed to go to law school. You got to read this book for you. And it was called like something like God's Will in Your Life. And he ended up giving it to me. I got off the phone with him that day. I was so angry because I was so excited to be done with the decision. And I read his book, and then it was all gray again. And I was angry for a while. Ultimately, one day, very clearly, the day I got Notre Dame in Chicago, same day, it was a Friday, got both of their acceptances in the mail that day. I opened both, and I'm like, I'm going to law school. And it was the right thing to do, and I haven't looked back.
And how'd you choose Chicago, Loyola over Notre Dame?
I wanted, all right, good follow-up. Notre Dame's South Bend, which is Erie-like, right?
Yeah.
In size. I was fortunate enough to do pretty well in my LSATs, and so I was invited to what's called Dean's Coffee at Loyola. And I did have one sister live in the western suburbs at Downers Grove. She still lives there, my sister Paula. And so I said, I'll go to the Dean's Coffee. Flew in to stay with her, drove in, took one of her cars to drive into the city. And it was a Saturday morning. The Dean's Coffee was, let's say, 9 a.m. 8:30, random Chicago Saturday, rainy. And there's a Starbucks at Chicago and State Street. I wonder if it's still there because it was a divey Starbucks, but I loved it. And it was kitty corner to Loyola University.
Was
Chicago
it kitty
Law
corner
School.
to Pippins?
No, close.
No, okay.
Block and a half away. And
Close. We'll talk about that later, maybe.
Yes. So anyhow, I was just sitting there and I called my mom, probably on some flip phone, right? They had just gotten invented. Because I was sitting there watching people walk by in the rain.
What year is this?
This is probably, if I had to guess, this
What
is
were you
like,
talking about? 97, 98 was your first.
Right. So I went to, this is probably March of 1997 to date me a bit. And I was sitting there because they had a bar looking out the window. People are going by and I'm like, this is where I'm supposed to be. I'm supposed to be in a big city. I'm supposed to be by myself, figuring life out. And I called my mom right there, and I'm like, I'm supposed to go to Loyola, and that's where I went.
Yeah.
I haven't looked back. I honestly think that Northwestern being due the next day was a bit of serendipity because I met such great friends that I still have to this day. Loyola is full of smart, fun, hard-charging people that are well-rounded. And Northwestern is a great school, so I'm not disparaging at all. But like, I just so appreciate the people that I got to know. And they all are from like that area. Loyola has a very phenomenal, loyal Chicago presence, and the law school does too. And so all of them, so I got integrated to Chicago. I met all of their Big Ten buddies. They came from different Big Ten cities or schools, and it was awesome. Yeah, it was just, I have never looked back on that decision. That was a little bit of God's will. Yeah.
So next question, business is, you get through law school, right? You decide to practice in Chicago for, you said 11 years, I believe?
Yep.
Something like that. How did you decide upon your kind of subspecialty of law?
Yeah.
Which is, are you commercial real estate or just
I mean, I do in
real estate? You do some residential stuff
in Erie. In Chicago, might have dipped my toe in it, but primarily in Chicago ultimately did all commercial. So your question is, how did I get there?
Yeah. Like, how'd you pick that over litigation, over, whatever other subspecialties kind of like drew you?
Yeah. So I actually started at a firm called Bell, Boyd & Lloyd, which I emailed to you, is an old school connected Chicago firm that now since has merged with K&L Gates. K&L Gates, if you've gone to a game at Pittsburgh, like the baseball stadium, you see K&L Gates. It's a big law firm. You'll see them next time you go now.
So it's not just a Chicago firm?
Yeah, no. It's national.
Okay.
So it merged with K&L Gates, but at that point, it was the last of like there's big Chicago firms to not merge. It stayed Bell, Boyd & Lloyd because, again, it was connected. Loved him. Jim Daly was the head of the labor employment group. So my second year of law school, I was a summer associate at Bell, Boyd & Lloyd and worked in Jim Daly's area. Jim Daly was a labor employment attorney. Well, the Dalys were the mayors of Chicago forever.
Yeah.
He was the first cousin of the mayor.
I was going to ask if there was that connection.
Chicago Transit Authority, Cook County, those were all the clients that he had. And he did labor employment work. Jim liked me. We had a good connection. And so when I had the preference where I'd start at that firm, I did real estate, but also labor employment. And Jim liked me and said, I want Jim Tui. So I started in that group. And it was actually pretty cool. But I did that 3.5 years, labor employment stuff, a lot of labor. Jim was a good dude, but I didn't like, to be quite honest, the guy that, I won't say his name, that did a lot of his work, couldn't have been more opposite me in personality and style, and we butted heads. And he wanted me to be someone I wasn't, which is a very important lesson that I've learned in professionally. It's, you got to be true to who you are. You can't try to be what you think your boss wants you to be or who your boss is. And I didn't know that. And so I was entirely uncomfortable. Great moment. Jim Daly being the great dude he is. I go into him to tell him, so I'm getting ahead, but I decided that I was going to open up my own shop for a year. And I did. The law offices of James B. Toohey, PC. And got my sports management certificate, a graduate certificate from Loyola, because I was thinking I was going to get into athletic administration, marrying law and the sport pack.
Oh, I never
So
knew
I did
that
that for a year while running my own office. But when I told Jim I was going to go do that, he said, what? Maybe you could get into our real estate group. Like, why learn it on your own buck? Do it with us. And I just thought that was the coolest thing. So I tried to transition to the real estate group, and they didn't have a spot for me. And so for like 3 months, I was a Seinfeld character. This is an aside, but it's funny. The guys knew in the group I was leaving. I told them I was leaving. No firm date was set. And so they just stopped giving me new work, and I kept showing up.
Were you still getting a paycheck?
Yes.
Okay. Because
No, I was going out on my own. No one was coming at some point. The classic moment was Pete Morrison was the head of the group, and he was a good guy. Jim Daly wasn't, interestingly enough, I don't think the head of the group, because he was just doing his own thing. Pete saw me in the hall one day, and this was just like 2 weeks before Thanksgiving, and he's like, Jim, saw your October time. And I'm like, about time I go, right, Pete? He goes, how about like the end of the month? I'm like, you got it, buddy. I went to my office and I'm like, but I mean, I wrote it for 3 months just to, enjoy that. And I was working on setting up my practice until they told me don't show up anymore. So then had my 1 year by myself, decided not to do sports management. Chris was just then pregnant. I'm skipping through it all. Ryan knows Chris. And then decided though that I had to, I liked real estate more. Transactional works more for my personality, and decided that I want to re-engage. So I decided to apply for a job at a place that would give me a little more stability. It was Fuchs and Roselli, and that's where I spent my last 6 years. And they, for a smaller shop, did all sorts of really cool commercial real estate work in Chicago. Like I was representing developers of high rises, you know? Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Because of John Roselli, who played hockey at Notre Dame of all things. He had a great reputation. So there you go, man.
My last business question,
Yeah.
which just seems like it's natural. We've heard.
Yep.
Why'd you go to law school? Why'd you choose real estate law? Why in the hell did you choose to move back to Erie, Pennsylvania? What was it a job offer? Was it I think it'll be best for our family? Was it a combo? What was it?
Yeah. Right opportunity, right time. So Chris, I mentioned this earlier, was pregnant with our third, Ryan, our little daughter, who she had probably 4 months before I moved back, and then she came later. But like, we were going to move to the suburbs. We had 2 kids in the city. No one in the city.
To the suburbs of Chicago.
Yeah, all 14 of my years in Chicago were in the city, and no one moves to the suburbs. I'm sorry, no one stays in the city. Very few do. If you have beyond 2, very few people in all Chicagoland more than 2 kids.
Yeah,
5 kids. The cost of raising 5 kids there just doesn't happen. So we were going to be moving to the suburbs. I was at a strange phase with Fuchs and Roselli, trying to figure out how I was going to fit in there longer term. And Scott Wallem, buddy of mine here in Erie, classmate of mine at prep, president at Quinn Law Firm at the time, I'm going to tell you I keep saying the bridge because I can tell long stories. Had a guy reach out to me serendipitously at a moment where I was like, because Chris never wanted to leave Chicago. I didn't. I thought I was living there the rest of my days. I loved Chicago. But it just came at the right time. And so we decided to explore it, and it took us months. And Chris couldn't even bring herself to make the decision because she so loves her family. But my instinct was something about the fact that none of her siblings at that point had kids. I have a large family here. My mom, rest in peace. Love you, Mom. She was still here and very excited about the potential. My wife's mom had passed. I never met her. So all of that, long story short, led to us making the decision. And honestly, I mean, we've had 2 kids since, and I said that earlier. I mean, Erie, I think it took Chris a while to warm up, but it's been awesome to us.
Do you have, again, you're an attorney, so I figured you did, but when Karen and I decided to move from Detroit here in 2015, it was very similar. We had this month to 6 weeks long deliberation. It was her idea to even consider it. I wasn't even considering it because I just became a partner in my Michigan firm or practice, called it firm. And we had a legal pad, and I literally drew a line down the middle, pros and cons, and she did the same thing. And we went back and forth for over a month. And at the end of the day, I mean, there was just no arguing. There were way more pros than cons to moving to Erie. And all the same things that you mentioned. Great place to raise a family.
Yeah.
It's safe. It's easy. The people here are great. It's not a Midwest city technically, but like I feel like it's Midwest. Like the people behave like Midwest people. Like they're very helpful. They're friendly. If you need somebody to like, oh, you need help lifting that or unloading your truck or something like that, people are willing to do that. Whereas other areas of the country, they may not be so willing.
Right.
So
yeah,
personal stuff.
Yeah, let's roll, man. I mean, I already dipped into the personal through my long
a little bit, but you've mentioned Chris a couple times. Like, how did you guys meet?
You don't know this?
Maybe you'll jog my memory, but off the top of my head, I don't.
This is a classic Chicago. Oh man! So
do we need another beer for this one?
Absolutely.
All right, so we're gonna go. So we're drinking the same thing here.
I don't podcast
unless you want
day.
the.
No. This is perfect.
Yeah,
Perfect.
This is
transition.
your Dogfish Head. This is pumpkin ale.
10:10 by now. I mean, my kids are all in bed. Cheers. And it's a pumpkin ale. So my second pumpkin, but I'm excited. Let's have a sip, right?
Yep.
Cheers.
So, Chris, begins with a D?
Yummy. Dargusis.
Dargusis.
Lithuanian.
How did you guys meet, and
All right.
how did you convince her to, number one, marry you.
Yeah.
And number 2, move to Erie. I don't know which one's more amazing, the fact that she married you or decided to move to Erie.
I'd like to think it was Erie, but in hindsight, I think a lot of people would think, yeah, it was the former. Marry me. I'm with you.
Kidding, but
I kind of you are. She's probably heard that a few times. So, all right. This is another good one. You keep asking questions that lead to good ones. If I had to like list my good stories. So I lived my 3rd year of law school across the street from Wrigley, right? In the right field, right next to a bar called Sports Corner.
I think I've been there.
Yeah. I mean, anybody that would, it's right off the L. on
Yeah,
Addison.
it's just like you can't miss it.
Correct.
Like as you're going to Wrigley, you like
Almost
walk
everybody
right
takes
past
the
it.
red line. Did you take
Yeah.
the red line?
Yep.
Yeah, you walk past it. So right around the corner, like from our, I can't say that we were like, we didn't have a rooftop. We were like the last building that would not have one. And you saw most of the outfield. But nonetheless, it was on the 3rd floor. So it was very cool. And 3rd year of law school, I already had my job at Bell Boyd. You know, one of my friends called me homeless Toohey because I went to so many Cubs games in the bleachers with just by myself sometimes and hung out and drank some beer and
Was it old style?
met people. Hell yeah.
All right.
Old
I
style.
know my stuff. So if
Oh
you've
my
ever
goodness.
been to a Cubs game at Wrigley, you have to get an old style. And I'm just going to tell you right now, it tastes like you're licking an old 1950s dumbbell with rust all over it.
Love it.
It's disgusting, but it's great when you're
matter
there.
of fact, if we did this all over again, I'd be like, get old style.
Could I get that or would I have to like special order that?
I don't think I've ever seen it in Erie.
Yeah.
And I mean, you know, Goose Island is Chicago
Yeah.
now, so that's what that's what comes our way or is a little more national. But I've never seen. I wonder. That's a great question. I don't know the answer. So anyhow, Cubs. It was the weekend before my last final of law school. And I think May 5th is the day of the Cubs game because that's the day that in my head I met my wife. And a bunch of my buddies from Erie.
Cinco de Mayo?
Could it have been Cinco de Mayo or was it May 1? I think it was Cinco de Mayo. May 5th is what sticks in my head.
Okay.
It was either May 1 or May 5. I'm going to go with May 5. I'm going to go with May 5. A bunch of my buddies were visiting from Erie because they loved Chicago and they had a buddy that was there and they knew I was across the street from Wrigley and my lease was running up. So literally I had probably 8 friends come in and stay at our place. And we arranged with a bunch of law school crew to get a bunch of seats in the bleachers. And one of my good friends from law school at that point, Kelly Martin, she was a sorority sister of my wife. And so Chris came to the game with Kelly and her crew. Then after the game, we went to a bar called the Wild Hair. That's where we often went. It was a reggae bar that you wouldn't go to if you were visiting from out of town, but it's right on Clark Street. It had air conditioning. That's what we loved about it.
Wow.
And good music. It always would. And it wasn't overly crowded. Great combo. So we went to the Wild Hair. Chris happened to be there with another group. And, you know, I don't know. Someone quickly introduced us. And I was behind her a little bit later. And I was smitten. And I reintroduced myself. And she's like, I'm sorry, who are you? And I was like, wait, you know. So I don't know. I fell for her very quickly in that moment. And so that same day, to bring a cool story full circle, she ended up marrying me, and then we came back to Erie, of course. One of the visitors that day, my buddy Gary Moss, met my good law school friend, Aaron, right? And they've married, and they live in Chicago now. So that same day.
So it was like a
Yeah.
swap-a-rooski.
Yeah. He was whipping around the dance floor by the end of the night, and I would say that Aaron probably rused the day that she fell in love with my buddy Gary. I love both those guys, but yeah. So 2 couples came from that visit.
That's awesome.
It was cool.
And no, I had not heard that story. So
you go.
I've heard a
There you
lot
go.
of stories. So another personal story. You come from a large family. So
Yes.
how many kids in your family?
Yeah. So I had 4 older sisters and then a younger brother.
And I've met some of your siblings. I've met at least one, maybe 2 of your sisters.
You
Definitely
have.
one.
I would say that in different moments. I mean, you definitely met Sue, but you've met a few. Like they made a point
definitely
because
met,
you've been good to my dad.
a second one at the baseball game.
Yeah.
The Seawolves game this summer.
Yes. So Dr. Molly Ryan replaced my dad's knee, and he's now in with, as he probably is with anybody he helps out, of my dad. Sorry, I need to finish that. Who's now 89, at the time was probably 87. And so my sisters are the ones that I'm not good enough as I guess a son. I don't get into the nitty gritty of his medical state. And they all made sure he was being taken care of, and you took care of him. So
I did the best I could.
And you've met a couple of them.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then your brother, Rich, is the head pastor, priest at Our Lady of Peace.
He is.
So you're Catholic. I'm Catholic. I'm very proud of that. I know you're very proud of that. I know your family's very spiritual. My grandparents, I remember they had a bedroom reserved for Father Jurgi. He was a priest that would come and visit. And they literally, you couldn't go into Father Jurgi's bedroom. Like I would peek in there. There was cool stuff in there. I remember a picture of Pope John Paul. There was a rosary. There was this, but it was immaculate. And it was just like off guard. It was right off the formal dining room in my grandparents' house. So I've always been kind of enamored by like the priesthood. And I've met your brother. He's been to our house. I've hung out with him in our backyard. Wonderful, wonderful guy. He's so smart. He's got a great personality. Love his messages in church. How was that being like the brother of a priest? Like, take me on that journey of like, did he always know he wanted to be a priest? When was it? If he didn't, when was it? And to this day, do you think of him as Father Toohey, or do you think of him as your little brother? And do you ever have to feel like you have to filter stuff because he's a priest? Because like when he was in the backyard, I'm like, oh, I can't say a swear word. It's Father Toohey's here.
Yeah, no, that's all legit. All right, so little brother, so he went to Notre Dame and got a business degree. So like it wasn't his lifelong intent, right? I mean, my mom always wanted one of us to be a priest, but aside from mom wanting one of us to be a priest, like you wouldn't have had an instinct in high school or at Notre Dame. I'd love to ask you raised that. Like he had a good crew of buddies at Notre Dame, and I'd love to ask them when you guys were sophomores and juniors, because shenanigans. I mean, my brother, I won't, but he was a regular college student, and
he's still a human being, right?
Heck yeah. No. Appreciates a beer, then. All that stuff. So I think he'd be better to answer this, but he did a year of mission volunteer work in Brockton, Massachusetts. His heart was stirred for something, or at least he wanted to figure something out. And I think that's the year. And then he came back to Erie. He was I believe, the director or the equivalent of the diocesan like youth ministries. And I think Brockton's when he got the call. And I think it got solidified while he was doing that. Lo and behold, he became a priest. So listen, I've been all behind the journey. It's been phenomenal to observe. Never a weird thing. Highlight of it, because he went to the North American College of Rome, which is over right next to the Vatican, even almost, I think, loosely tied to it. But he was ordained right under St. Peter's chair. One of the coolest, 8 or 10 kids and marriage and birth and all that stuff. It's right up there. I mean, it was really cool. Very unique thing to witness that. Ordained a deacon, but that's when you make your lifelong commitment. And so, no, I've been nothing but loving it. The only weirdness to the ride, because you asked it was when he is pastor of Our Lady of Peace, which and that's the parish that we joined when we came back here, independent of him. He was in Warren at the time, and then he got named parish or pastor of our parish. And so that's a little odd, right? Because everybody has an opinion on, the president, maybe the mayor, their family physician, certainly their pastor.
And sometimes they'll move.
Oh my gosh, people follow them. There's undeniably people follow their pastor. Very first, so it took me, because I was a bad brother, and at that point I had 5 kids, and several of them were very little. So we would go to mass wherever it fit into our schedule. I don't feel like I got to his first mass at OP until it was like the 4th week, and like I'm in the cry room. And I come out
because you're crying, or because
little Marin. Okay. So Marin, at this point, if you go back, she's now, oh my gosh,
she's 8 or 9.
She's 8. So she's 8, and at this point, she's 2. She has me out in the vestibule during Rich's homily. Love my brother. He has very sincere, awesome points. No one would ever call him like the quickest hum list. So I am out in the vestibule, and I don't think I've ever said this to Rich. So Rich, if he ever sees this, love everything you do, brother. And this has nothing to do with you because it was a random guy that came out, but like some guy walks out to go to the bathroom. And he just makes eye contact with me. He's like, the new priest can talk, huh? And I'm like, right out of the gates. Right out of the gates.
He's like, you haven't met his brother.
Oh, man, right out of the gates. Right. I'm putting on a performance tonight. Right out of the gates, I'm like, oh, yes, this is going to be unique, right? And yet I get, just to juxtapose that in case he would ever see this, or one of my sisters that would then tell him, I get so many positive compliments or positive comments and compliments because of his passion for his ministry. And I'm proud of him. Yeah.
I mean, I have met him just a couple times.
Yeah.
I'm proud of him and blessed to be able to belong to his parish.
Yeah.
And this isn't a personal question. This doesn't count. Do you think he would ever be on a podcast?
Oh, heck yeah.
He'd be fun, I think.
I think he would be. And I think he would. Yeah.
So
I'd be very surprised if he would not be. I'd be. Yeah.
That would be really cool.
Get his sorry butt on this podcast.
All right, that's a goal.
Oh wait. I think that was your final question.
Nope.
Okay.
So I'm going to do a kid question, but then I'm going to kind of break away from what we generally do because I've got a couple cool things I want to do. But so you have 5 kids, right?
Yeah.
You've kind of gone through who they are. How do you and Chris? All right. So when you have your first one, all your time, energy goes to that one, and you still have your life outside of that because there's only one kid.
Yeah.
And you can, Chris, you got the kid? I'll go do this. Or Chris,
Yep.
you go do that. I got the kid.
Yep.
Baby number 2 comes. It's classic. It's 2-on-2, right? You're tag teaming it, right? But then that third one comes, and like we've made that jump, and it's like you got to go to zone, right? Then you go 2-on-4,
Yeah.
and then you guys chose to go 2-on-5. Like, how do you do it? And I know you guys are extraordinarily busy, especially like you have a thriving law practice. You're actively involved. I mean, you help coach, some of your kids' athletic events and endeavors. Like, how do you guys do it? Like, we have 3, and I feel like it's challenging. I know people will just say, well, you just do it. But do you guys sit down
That's
each
my
week?
initial response. Good
And
question.
do you have like a game plan?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
all right,
yeah.
this week, this is what we're going to do.
Yeah. So, I mean, my quick analogy at one point was like, if you had just one day given me 5 kids, it's like dropping the frog in the pot of boiling water, right?
Yeah.
You jump right out and you'd be like, this is the stuff, but it's a slow boil. And eventually you find yourself like the frog boiling.
Cooked.
Yeah. No, but
I
you
use that same analogy when I talk about employed physicians. No offense to any employed physicians
All
out
right.
there, but each year they turn it up just a little bit so
enough.
that you don't realize by year 5 you're cooked. So,
That's fair enough.
But-
So no. How do you do it? We tried the weekly thing. But what we've settled into is constant communication. It is what it is. But for a while, I probably was getting surprised by stuff. And so that's why should we do a weekly thing? Instead, we just communicate the night before / afternoon of. Like I tell people, I've said it to you, don't ask me on Monday what I'm doing on Friday. I mean, I can look at my calendar and get a snapshot, but like in terms of the
a
kids,
lot can change,
and,
right?
and I've learned a lot. I mean, I've got, but no, it's kind of day by day. And we know we've got to coordinate. We have my dad who still helps with rides. But we just make it happen. We're constantly on the go, and you just kind of laugh. It's communication. It's fighting for your kids, but yet trying to find moments to enjoy life. I mean, this is kind of cool for me because I don't do this much.
Yeah.
Where there's an hour and a half from, in a very unique way. This is like me and you at a bar stool somewhere. Like, I don't do that. And so,
It's
we
fun,
do
isn't it?
sometimes. It's not like we never do anything.
Yeah,
But when we
like
do it,
we've gone to some concerts together, which have been
or
really,
it's
really fun.
couples or, maybe me, you, and a few. But like, it's just nice to hang out a little bit. So thank you for this.
Of course.
But you just,
Thanks for coming.
yeah, it's day by day. And you're right. My practice, I've had to learn how to peel a little bit back on that and be more settled with shutting down at the end of the day with something I can get to later, which happens sometimes, or the next morning. I pride myself, as you do. I mean, like I try to be efficient and responsive. But you know, I'm only going through this phase once, kids and family.
Yeah,
So
you
that's
got to set
important.
your boundaries, right?
Yeah.
Like certain points, like, yeah, this seems very important work wise, but like I can get to that tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's not critical that I get to it right now.
That was hard for me to learn. That
Me too.
art is
Yeah.
but I've gotten a lot better at that.
have
Not
to.
that there isn't occasionally. It's not like some people have the skill of just doesn't matter how big or little an issue. If it's big, I dive back into the kid, and then I'm back on for a few at the end of the night when they've gone to bed, if it needs that. So I mean, it's just about
Balance.
balancing, figuring out, and back to the spiritual. Like, I mean, because life's so on the go, I find a little bit part of my ministry, my life, my wife, my kids, you know, it's just my passion play and my work. And I try to turn all of that, the chaos of it, I try to take a moment and just say, this is what I got right now, and I'm going to bring it the best I can.
Yeah. I mean, you've got your priorities straight. And my life coach, I've mentioned her multiple times, Allison Parplasha.
Yeah.
You may or may not know her. She recently moved to Savannah, Georgia. She's definitely going to be one of my podcasts.
Cool.
But she said to me a couple years ago, she's like, busy parents oftentimes get their priorities mixed up, right? But it really needs to be God, we, you and your spouse, and then your kids. Oftentimes you definitely jump over yourself. People forget about self-care, whether it's working out, whether it's meditating, whether it's going out in the woods and
Heck yeah.
spending a couple hours just literally enjoying, taking the moment in the fresh air, the fall colors, the chill of the air. I have very spiritual moments when I do that. I was out in Colorado Springs last week. I had a very, very spiritual moment when I was hiking and I was on the top of a mountain.
Cool.
And, you know, and then you oftentimes skip the we, right? You stop doing date nights.
Yeah.
It's not like you get put on the back burner with Chris gets put on the back burner with you because you've got to take Duck to basketball practice. You've got to take Kate here. Ryan and Nate are doing this, and Marin's, you know, with Chris. So it gets very busy, and then you go right to your kids. Mm-hmm. So, and it doesn't need to be the volume of time, but you can't skip those steps. So over the past couple of years, I have spent a tremendous amount of time. Like, it's okay to love yourself and to take care of yourself and to put some time and energy into doing something for you. Because if you can't be good with you and you can't love who you are, it's going to be really hard to love your spouse and be there for your kids. So, but above that is God. So it's like, it is this tiered approach for me now that has really helped me to balance my life out.
It's tough, man. You do your best. But yeah, and hearing what you're saying right there, which was really cool. And I would love to meet your life coach and or listen to her podcast. But like, it's that even though you're supposed to put yourself higher up there and take care of you, there are days where you feel like you're taking care of you, but like, at least at my stage in life, that I'm doing that selfishly. And so I've learned to overcome that.
Yeah, I used to think of that too. It's like, if I take this time, that's being selfish. But then you realize, like, if you don't do it, you're going to be maybe short-tempered with your kids or with your wife.
It just gives you energy for life, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Amen. So next, we're going to break it up a little bit. We'll do the Sawbones 7th inning shoe stretch. Awesome. So, you know, for those of you that maybe this is your first time watching, I'm a huge shoe guy. Have a massive Jordan shoe collection. That's kind of my thing that I collect. I don't collect cars or this or that, but that's my thing. I'm a huge basketball guy, huge Jordan guy. And I ask my guests to either wear their favorite pair of shoes or a very meaningful pair of shoes. And Jim, I shit you not, that this session of this podcast has what I thought was going to be very simple and just like nothing too deep or personal or powerful has become probably one of the most powerful sessions that I've ever seen.
Oh, wow.
Where I've heard some stories that have brought my guests either to tears or close to tears and myself and people that have listened, including Karen. Like she broke down during, especially Dr. Hutzel's, Dave Hutzel.
Yeah.
Ever get a chance, you got to listen to that podcast and particularly that shoe story because I get chills just thinking about it right now. And I don't want to spoil it if you haven't watched it, but you should definitely tune in. But
cool.
Let's hear your story.
Oh man. After all that, I'm a huge disappointment because you're just going to laugh at me. I've never been a shoe guy. We've had very good conversations on your shoes.
Yeah.
So the point is though, I appreciate it before even any of this. And if, I lived 100 lives, I think a couple of them I would be driven to that. I love the collection piece. I did baseball. There's a nostalgia, but I never, for whatever reason, when it came to shoes, professionally, I haven't minded a decent pair of work shoes, but like when it came to the shoes out, like when it came to like my high tops or my sneaks when I was playing hoops, I was more focused on just getting out there and taking you. Like I didn't care that much growing up about the shoes on my feet, but taking me back to Chicago and your favorite brand, and then you're gonna laugh at me. Yesterday go to work because I thought I was coming here after coaching, then straight to here. So I knew that Crystal Herman, who works with me, her husband's what's the expression for people that are into shoes? Shoesy or something. There's an expression for him.
Oh, there's an expression for someone like me?
Yeah.
Maybe people don't tell me.
It's like a
they know.
foodie, but whatever the heck. And
Okay.
so her husband's way
Like
into
a shoe head or something like that.
Yeah, shoe head it might be. Her husband's way into collecting them and just knowing what's out and released and all that, and he's gone through it all. So going back to Chicago, one time when I'm heading to the L after work, I needed a new pair of hoop shoes because I was still playing in those days regularly. And there was a store at State Street and Madison Avenue, and I pop in there, and I'd never had Jordans, and they had a pair of Jordans there, and not too pricey. Bell did not go off in my head that like, why are Jordans just sitting there on the rack in Chicago? And so I buy them, and they've been like when I play occasionally anymore, I've gone back to play a little, not much. They're the ones I wear. So I've had these suckers for, I'm going to guess 15, 17 years.
Wow.
And thought they were like one of the numbered Jordans. So I say, Crystal, text your husband, find out what these are. And I can't remember the expression for it. I just was looking at my paper to see. It's not knockoff. These are Jordans.
Yeah.
But
I have a couple pairs of those.
They blend like the 6, or I wanted to find out the number.
Yeah,
And
there's no number for those.
they blend the 10 and the 16, she thinks. But there's
Oh,
some
really?
of his shoes are blends and they're not authentic. Like
For sure.
here I am all fired up. At least I have a pair of Jordans to wear to the Brian's podcast.
They've got the Jumpman on there. They got the 2-3
no,
on
these are
there.
legit.
Yeah.
And I bought them in Chicago,
Yeah.
right? But yet, nonetheless, they weren't even authentic Jordans.
Don't let my boys see you in those though, because
they've been worn.
Travis, my buddy.
Yeah, oh yeah.
So he came over with a pair of they weren't Jordans, but there were some Nikes, and Luca it was Luca. He goes, bro. He's like, where'd you get those? Walmart?
Well, they kind of saw me. They just didn't say anything yet. They didn't
They
see my
respect
shoes.
their elders,
Oh
right?
my! So here, but what I thought in segue, having shared that I'm not much of a shoe guy, you'll get a kick out of my one shoe tale, and it's hoops related, and it's old school. So junior year of high school,
Converse All Stars, the canvas. Seriously?
junior year of high school, I was cut by prep. I broke my ankle in football, and I rushed to come back. The coach, and I loved him as a person.
Marcel?
No, Marcel first year was my senior year.
Okay.
Yeah. And things went very differently. But he kept 17 kids until like the day before the first game because he didn't know who those last two cuts were going to be. And I was one of them. And I was devastated. But then I played CYO, was it Christian Youth Organization or Catholic Youth Organization? It still exists where kids that don't play for their high school team, you play for a parish.
Yep.
And it was uber competitive then. We had like 15 teams. I went to St. George as a kid, and it just so happens that like St. George is already kind of thinking they're going to win the championship locally. And the guys were all a year older, and they were excited when I was cut because then I was going to play with them. And lo and behold, I did. And we ran roughshod. I mean, we kicked everybody's butt. in the most controversial basketball game that I've ever witnessed live, we lost in the state championship in overtime to a Philadelphia team. But nonetheless,
Wow.
yeah, story for another day. And I want to tell you that someday. But nonetheless, we're playing OLP for first place at OLP, which is now where my kids go. It's the very gym that I coach in. And I was kind of a
Scrappy?
prick. Am I allowed to say that?
Yeah, you can.
I was I scrappy, whatever the heck. You know, I'm a junior in high school. And a buddy, I don't even know what buddy. I don't even know how they fit me. He had red Chuck Taylors. St. George's red. I wanted to go into OLP's gym and wear red Chuck Taylors and kick their butt. And I wore red Chucks for the game and we kicked their butt. And I led us in scoring.
Wow. Did you wear like tube socks with the big red rings up
I
at the top?
don't remember
too?
the socks. There's no pictures of me doing that day. But I mean,
I was going to say,
that is my...
Jay's going to ask a question. Hey, do you have a photo of that game and those shoes?
That is my one, like, you know, kind of like snarky, but kind of cool and legendary old
Kinda like
school
stick it to
sneaker
him.
day.
That's kind of like Jordan when he went to the Garden and he wore the
Right.
Jordan 1s
The olds.
for his
Yeah.
last game at the Garden
Right.
when he was with the Bulls.
Right.
And scored like 45, 50 points, something like it was ridiculous.
Funny thing is, I can't remember. Like, I guess the one thing that I can't connect to my brain, did I go out and buy them just for that purpose? But then I never would have given them away. I feel like I bummed somebody's red.
I
yeah,
think
whatever.
I think the story's better if you bummed them off
No,
somebody.
I really think I did.
And they were like a size and a half too small.
They
You should add that to
I don't
it.
know that, but yeah, for me to have gone and bought them, that's way too
You wouldn't have
aggressive.
done that.
Yeah, I don't do
Especially
that.
not being a shoe guy.
No, and I sit around to this day. I've had on my list need 2 new suits for like 2 years. So no, I had somebody that spoon fed me those
Yeah.
things, and I went out there and I mean, at least I got it done.
You did.
We didn't
It sounds
lose.
like you kicked some butt too with them on. Did your feet hurt afterwards?
I don't have memory of like awful experience. I don't have
So
memory
it
of
wasn't
like,
like you took your shoe off and the skin just all
yeah,
came
I don't
off
have
of it?
memory of like through the whole game, like wondering when's this going to end so I can get my shoes off. Yeah,
You had too many endorphins flowing through your system.
I did,
from the
man.
game.
That was fun.
So these are the Jordan 11 Concords, the breads. So anytime you hear the word bread referring to the Jordans, it's black, red color combo. The bull colorway. So when they say colorway, that's got the color combination that they use for that particular shoe. So you see the black, you see the red, the white.
Yeah.
But this patent leather was what really defined this shoe. There is a shoe that I have, the Jordan 1 Concords, that they're low Jordan 1s, but they have this black patent leather that they brought as a tribute to the 11s and combined them with the 1s. And I think I wore those for Travis's episode, and he wore these ones for that episode. So we had kind of a tribute from the 1s and the 11s. And by the way, when I was growing up, Jordan 4s were always my favorite. Jordan 11s were like my second favorite. Now my taste is growing to the point where I really like the Jordan 1s are probably the most comfortable, and they were my least favorite growing up. I thought
Jordan ones
they were the
of
ugliest. I thought.
everything are the most comfortable.
Yeah, they are. They really are. And especially the lows. I'm not a high guy. I would never really, these aren't too bad.
I was always a high guy, man.
But
And I
when
just-
I played,
that's why
when
I was feeling that.
Hold on.
Like, I would love
when
that.
I played basketball, I always wore high tops.
okay, I see.
And I taped my ankles because I would sprain my ankles off.
Yeah.
And I would lace them. I would lace that up, and I would be as tight as it could be.
Right.
With tape underneath. But I'm saying like day-to-day stuff, I wouldn't wear this generally. This one's not too bad, but some of the Jordan 1s, they come up really high. This is more of a mid cut. But yeah, I just like
Yeah, I like the mid.
It's just kind of like, it's Jordan-esque. It's kind of cocky. Like you've got this black,
So
shiny
are you
patent
saying
leather.
this is the only Jordan, like authentic original, like of the numbered? How many are there, by the way, now?
Oh gosh, 35,
thought it was
36.
8-ish. Yeah, 36. That has this
Yeah.
leather.
I mean, they
here.
started in 84, 85. So
Yeah.
just do the math.
Right.
But
fair enough.
I mean, they've done some other iterations like the 12s. It wasn't patent leather, but they had kind of this edge.
Sure.
That was the flu game shoe.
I think these are super cool.
Yeah. But I mean, you probably remember him wearing these.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, actually, one of the posters out there has him with this on. But before we go into the next section, which is going to be awesome and
Okay.
fun. But by the way, the next section is the 7th inning. No, this was the 7th inning shoe stretch. It's the Sawbones challenge.
Okay.
Which, have you watched any of these episodes? You said
Listen, man. I'm going to.
He's making excuses. That's a
I'm
no.
not. I haven't.
That's okay.
So you're completely
next
surprising me. I guess
Wednesday-
that's the one benefit.
Perfect. But before we do that, I want to tell just a couple Jim Tui stories.
Oh, crap.
Yeah, because you got me at the beginning.
Okay.
So one is
I'll be quiet.
So Jim's second son, Nate, and my second son, Santino, are the same age. And for a couple years, they were classmates. We would coach the MYAA, Mill Creek Youth Athletic Association rec team. And, this was probably 4 years ago. And I was like, hey, Jim, I'm gonna coach. You want to help me? You're like, yeah, I'll help you. So we get in there. We're doing some practices, and we eventually get into the games. And our mutual friend, your business partner, Bill Spiros, it's kind of funny because you work with him, and then I see him, and he just kind of like would ask me. He's like, "How is it coaching with Jim?" I go, "Yeah, it's good." I was like, "He is really, really intense, though. I mean, really intense, like to the time where I'm sometimes like kind of taking a step back, not offended at all. I'm just like, whoa, like Jim's intense." And then apparently he told me this later that he asked you like, "How is it coaching with Ryan?" And you were like, "He is really, really intense." do you remember?
I didn't never heard that.
But did you say that?
Yeah. My memory. I don't know if I would have said intent because like you weren't like yelling at kids, if that could be construed that way. But you brought like you weren't Mr. Passive Dad. So would I have used the word intense? I don't know. But I would have said Ryan, he brings it, man.
I would say intense is fairly accurate. Just I almost got, I wouldn't say thrown out of a game last year because I was coaching.
Well, but
Tino's.
I'd say that because those kids were little. I think we were pretty stinking positive with them. We just brought a lot of energy.
But as it gets a little older, right, and you get you get your competitive juices flowing.
Sure.
And it's not like, hey, my kid's the best or anything like that. But and I hate to bring it about the refs, but like something happens and you're just like, what?
We're human.
Yeah.
But I actually, if you would, it's kind of funny to hear that because if you just walked in and say, hey, how did you and Ryan work as a coaching group that year? And I mean, we know each other even a lot better now than we did then. But nonetheless, I have good vibes for it, but you're right. Like, I feel like at first I was like, oh, Ryan really brings it. And you probably then in my own way, because I'm full of getting after it when I'm out there. And so, yeah, that's funny to hear that.
I mean, then we coached flag football together too, and that was a lot of fun too.
Heck yeah!
But so that's funny story number one. But the second one, so we're coaching. I think this is the second year that we coached together.
I thought this is what you were going to tell.
Yeah, we're going there. We're coaching and we're practicing at Sinai Grace because I think this was after the contract with like Old Family First, Erie Sports Park, whatever it was at that time. So all the games were at Sinai, and we're practicing. And we had this one kid. I'm not going to obviously say last names, but his name was Gianni, and
wonderful little fella,
wonderful kid. He was a bigger, taller kid, and I mean he had an awesome rat tail, just
yes, he did.
It wasn't really a mullet, but it was more of like a really long rat tail. And so Gianni, we're going through, I think it was like layup lines or something like that. And we're like trying to teach the kids like, okay, right side, you're going to go up for the layup. The guy from the left is going to get the rebound. You're going to go on the outside so you don't cut in front of the guys coming in for the layup. And the same thing when you're going to the rebounding line. And Gianni just was not getting the drill at all. And Coach Toohey was like, I got to get his attention. So he's like, Luigi. And everybody's looking around like, who the hell is Luigi? And Gianni's even looking around. And then he goes, he's just frankly ignoring Coach Toohey, but it's because he didn't know that his name was Luigi because it wasn't. It was Gianni. And Jim just kept going.
I felt
Luigi. And he was getting angry that the kid wasn't responding to him. And so I'm like, Jim, Jim, I'm like, who are you calling Luigi? He's like, Luigi. And he's pointing at him. I'm like, that is not Luigi. I was like, his name's Gianni.
You were laughing your butt off when you told me that. You were like, his name's Gianni, you dork. Oh, yes. So, yes, God bless Gianni. I did do that. And it wasn't my proudest moment. But yet we've had some laughter over
Oh, gosh.
that.
There's so many more. I could tell the football story. That's for a different day.
Oh,
but
Luigi.
Do you have any funny stories you'd like to share before we go into the Sawbones challenge?
Oh, man. Ryan, I didn't know I was supposed to come up with a funny one for you.
I can keep telling them about you if you want.
I won't.
I was going to
because
try to give you an opportunity.
many of them involve.
Oh, censored.
Yeah, would need
Connie
to be
Mall is
censored.
watching this.
Yeah, no, I'll pass. I appreciate you. We have funny moments. We do.
Vito.
As any friendship should.
Yeah, there's certain things that are in the vault, right? Mm-hmm. So was I bad to bring the Luigi one out?
No,
That-
I mean
that's-
it wasn't
an
intentional.
innocent-
Yeah, it was just my total. I will admit one of the things my brain doesn't do so well of late is remember names.
I'm horrible with names.
So yeah, there's no surprise, and the fact that like I mixed two names of like intense Italian like descent,
Yeah.
if you will. We all do that, right? We type. We'll create a typecast on somebody,
yeah.
and subconsciously, I mean that was
I'm
part of the
like-
brilliance. If I was yelling Mark,
I'm like, does he have a mustache?
Right.
Is it Mario, Luigi? What's going
I
on?
mean, if I was yelling Mark, that wouldn't have been funny, you know?
yeah,
Something
no.
about-
I'm
something
so
about-
glad you picked
I mean,
Luigi.
Oh, something about,
I
Gianni, Luigi, they ended in I,
The funny thing is that I just, other than Mario Brothers, I've heard of Luigi's, but I've never met a Luigi. So that the fact that you picked that Italian name,
I don't know a Luigi. So I can't say that like the night before I was hanging out with a Luigi. No, not a great moment, but a funny one. And it was innocent. So that's good. It stands.
good stuff. All right. So next, as you are hopefully, and Jim doesn't even know what's coming yet, but the Sawbones challenge is next. So stick around. After that, we'll come back. We're going to do our conclusion, kind of our wrap up, and then we'll give you a sneak peek as to who our next week's guest is. So stick around. Sawbones challenge coming up next.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the main event.
All right, everybody. Hey, it's a Sawbones challenge. So fortunately for Jim, it's late at night. I don't have good enough lighting outside, so we can't do the standard 3-point competition, which he was making fun of me earlier, saying that my sister's a better shooter, which she was. She played college basketball, D2, and was a shooting guard, so she definitely was a better shooter. But that being said, I'm going to demolish you tonight. And if we would have had the 3-point competition, it would have been even worse.
Yeah.
You actually stand a chance because we're going to do the basement version. I think this is a third version, 3.0. I know fourth. Anthony Santoro, we did Pig. Dr. Kim Mesha, we did the Papa Shot over there. Dr. Archana Anand, we did the Papa Shot, but we're going Pig, and I always let my guest go first.
All right, let's do it. Big it is. Let's start with a little fun. Ready? I haven't even shot here yet, but.
Wow.
Oh! I thought I had you get out of the.
Lace up those Chuck Taylors, Jim.
Let's go.
Papa Shot. Did you see that vertical? That was like credit card.
That's a
underneath
shot
there.
you can make when you have kids that are down here with you all the time. Does it have to go off the backboard? The ball
It
goes
can be
back?
the wall.
Yeah, I just gotta
It
have
can
to
be-
jump.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know if I can. Oh!
We'll give you one more chance. We're gonna give him the second
That
chance.
was way too
That was
fast.
really nice.
That was way too fast.
Oh, he got it. He got it.
Yep.
So this is my little. I have some ode to Kobe, ode to Jordan. This is my skyhook, right? So you come here, you fake with the right, come up, over. That's gonna get you. I'm gonna get at least one letter off.
All right. And in reverse. You gotta come under the hoop and use the board. Oh.
Wow. doing a little Dr. J here.
Okay. Fair enough.
Oh, wow. All right, give him a little Kobe. Little fade away. Oh! Mm-hmm. But a little ceiling action there.
All right. Let's see what I want to do here. Aye. Little left-handed hook. Running hook. Oh, dang it all. Oh. I didn't do it until I made it.
All right, go back to the Kareem.
I have to edit out one or two of these to make big shots. Bank shot.
Ooh, that's gonna be tough. I don't even want to shoot that backwards so slow. Oh! Came to the camera, came around. Oh!
That felt good.
Oh! That hit the ceiling too.
Not better. It didn't matter, but whoa! All right, I'm trying to act like I can still jump.
All right, go to the same spot that I'm doing. You didn't launch.
Oh! Okay, so I've got to take off now. You're gonna do that to me. All right, here we go. All right.
Oh! You did it!
So I guess I just have to get
It's
here
just
now.
pee to nothing. I'm gonna get one of these on you here. That's a tough one. If you don't do it a lot. Just a touch shot.
I was worried I like threw like a half hook. All right.
For the game, fade away. Boom. Oh! Oh, the bank. Did he call the bank, folks?
You can make it however you want to make it.
Right here?
Yeah, right.
P to PI.
I got
PI. I think I broke a blood vessel in my hand. Oh, he's going to the free throw
I'm
line
still
here.
feeling it. On the dunk. Come on. Gosh.
The infamous last Jordan shot against Byron Russell in the Jazz.
Oh, sure.
It counts as right there, but he sometimes comes in, does one of those kind of pushes, comes back, fades, then drains it, and goes 6 championships, 6 baby.
All right. Actually, yeah, right. He has it on the left, I think.
Yeah, it's opposite, right? Pushes him, fades. Oh! And it's over.
Oh, you don't have a
You're lucky you're not playing my sister, by the way, because you wouldn't get a letter on her. Sawbones challenge. All right. Stick around. We got the closing coming right up. Hey, everybody. Welcome back from the Sawbones challenge. So, Jim, I again just want to thank you so much for taking time out of your busy evening work week and coming and doing this. This was fun.
Thank you. No, it really was.
Every guest that I have, it's just like I learned so many new things about them.
Right. Well, it's good that you authentically enter in. You don't have an agenda. You make it conversational, and I think that's cool.
Yeah. And I kind of like not knowing the questions or not letting you know the questions ahead of time, because then it becomes a little too scripted.
Right.
So, but thanks again for doing this. So I always ask all my guests this, and personally, I don't know if I can answer this question myself because I'm kind of an in the moment type of guy. But where do you see yourself personally and professionally in 5 years? And I know a lot of that is probably dictated by the fact that Marin is in 3rd grade.
Yeah.
Right? So, you're going to be probably here for at least 5 years and maybe 10 years. I don't know.
More than probably any guest you have on this show. I'm probably I'm gonna be doing what I do for. I mean, God willing, right? But I'll be doing what I'm doing for another 5 years. I am conclusively and definitively, knock on wood. I mean, just at a great firm, and I've been at 1, 2. If you count the law offices of James B. Toohey, PC, 3, 4.
I do.
This is 5, right? So really 4 places. So I bring some of that to the table, and I'm in a great place that I've had no thoughts. It's a great firm. It's well managed. I love the people I work with. So I anticipate, because of my kids being the age they are and the number that I have, that I'm going to be plugging along. What might happen over time is I get a little more time for some of the things that I haven't been able to do, right? It's going to be the traveling. Chris and I, somehow or another, she likes the NBA with me because I like the Bulls, and she'd watch them with me, and she's good at hoops. She knows hoops now. Not that she didn't before, but she's entered into it with me. And we had like a goal to go to all 30 NBA cities and see a game. We made it through like 4, but I could see us re-engaging.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
That kind of stuff. Maybe we'll have to do 2 a year by that point.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, there's a lot of life left. But for 5 years, I think 5 years is, some of that will start happening more. Marin will be in 8th grade, and I'll have a couple in college at that point. But I've got plenty more years of grinding away at the office.
How old was your dad when he retired? Because he was...
Well, yeah. What is retire? He's still, my dad's 89, and he still has a place that he can rest his bum at the Quinn Law Firm because they've been phenomenal to him. But he officially kind of retired. No longer did work for anybody at COVID. So what was he, 85?
Wow.
I mean, not that he did. He likes the connection to people in a place, and the Quinn firm he's very proud of. His name is, if you do the full name of it, it's on there. So he just likes that. I think I'm going to be more of a when my day is done, I'll handle it professionally, phasing out, but like my day will be done, and I will
you're not working until you're 85.
No, unless tragedy occurs that dictates that, usually by 85, your firm has kind of moved you along your way. So a lot of that, they just appreciated having him around. And he still was a good advocate for the firm. So they respected that. He wasn't practicing, practically speaking, all that much. But he didn't. COVID is when, quote unquote, he officially no longer had anything to do with the firm other than the fact that they still allowed him to show up and hang out a little bit, and they've been wonderful to him.
Drink some coffee.
Right on. So I'm much more in 5 years, though. And, the key's going to be evolving with the practice. I mentioned AI earlier, and AI is going to be a big part of the progression of law, right?
Really? I never thought about it with law, but...
all of those... technologies or that allow for AI to draft things and to write things, and they do it so much quicker, right? And so I'm in a drafting profession, and so the first version of it, I assume every firm is going to have to be plugged into and a member of and have access to AI technology, because they're gonna be able to they're gonna get used to how you write, and you're gonna be able to say to it, I want a draft of this agreement that has these components to it. And I assume that they're going to be able to get you just through that, 93% of the way there. And then you're just going to be fine tuning it and getting it out. I still think the art of negotiation beyond that is going to require 2 humans. But
you're not going to be able to be displaced entirely.
Yeah.
Just
already a lot of people, go ahead. Sorry.
My world, right? You're never going to not have a surgeon.
Right.
Like, yes, there's robotic assistants and AI. I just saw an article where, an AI actually scored, I think, at the 5th year level resident for the in-training exams that we take every year.
Oh yeah, it's like the ChatGPT stuff, right? I mean,
exactly.
I don't have it. I've not dabbled in it because I'm not one that's going to be all over that. And I know a lot of people are and are much more techie oriented than me. But I realize the future, and I realize I better get ready for it. And I've made mention to our firm. I mean, we've got to try to be progressive, which is why I was asking you that, because I'd like to hear how professions in other fields are anticipating the future, because I'm more than 5 years.
Yeah.
And imagine if you're 33 and just taking your bar exam and started working in the last few years, and you've got 30 years of practice left. How dynamic is the change going to be for them? It'll be interesting.
For sure.
Yeah.
Well, we definitely live in cool times, right? Both
Yeah.
for our professions, and I think a lot of other professions have that opportunity to see the challenges that exist and the growth potential that exists. But again, Jim, thank you so much for coming on. This was a lot of fun.
Me, man.
Okay.
Appreciate you.
We got to get back to coaching together again so I can get
I
some
wonder
more
if life
Luigi
will give us
stories.
another opportunity.
But, that being said, stick around because we have our next week's guests. And if you have any comments, any suggestions, any questions, submit them. Follow us, subscribe, share with your friends, and spread the word. And again, thank you for spending the time with us. It's been a lot of fun, and we'll see you next week. Have a great day.
Well, that'll hit close to home. I'm from the same town as you, Maplewood. Townville. I always like to say we couldn't even think of a name for our town, so it's Townville, where we're from.
Center of the universe, right?
Yeah. When let's see, be in our 20s. Like I worked all through my 20s, and you were in school pretty much until you were 30, and you actually came and lived with me for a year, and you lived in my basement. I had to finish.
Not a
basement.
year. It was about 2.5 months.
Is that what it was?
Yeah, maybe 3 because it
seemed
was
like a long time.
it was actually July, August, September. It was my first 3 months that I was supposed to be doing a pediatric orthopedic rotation, and a lot of people would go like to Cincinnati, very big for orthopedics, pediatrics, and I knew I was going to do adult reconstruction. It was my last year of my residency, and we had Shriners Hospital in Erie, and I said, you know what? I know what I'm going to do with my career. I don't need to be pinning all these supracondylar elbow fractures, and these kids are doing these long spine cases. So yeah, you and your wife, Jess, were gracious enough to host me, but that was 2009 from July till July, August, September.
That was a good time.
It was.
We had a good time.
We did. I remember getting out on your boat and, oh my gosh, you're losing us money. I'm like, I am not stupid. No, I do not have a business degree, but I realize that orthopedics and spine surgery generate the most amount of revenue for any hospital, hands down, of any subspecialty. And we're talking tens of millions of dollars that we're generating for the hospital.
And they were saying that you were losing them money.
Yeah.
Really, what they meant is you could be making more money, and you're not making us more money because you couldn't have been losing them. Money, right?
No, I think that they were just flat out lying to me to try to like get me to motivate me to do more. And
I don't know, man. I love how in the country everybody knows your neighbors. You take care of each other.
Yeah. No, I would say the same thing, and I think and this isn't a slam to any people that grew up in the city. I mean, my wife grew up in Metro Detroit, much bigger than Erie, but there's a different mentality too in terms of like work ethic too. Like I grew up on a farm, right? So we were cutting our own wood, we were doing hay for the cows in the summer. You know my dad, General G. We were mowing the lawn 3 times a week.
3 times, if not 4. Gerald was tough on the grass.
If there was a blade out of place, it was like, all right, get out there and take care of it.
He was an old man way before he was an old man.
For
when
sure.
It comes to grass.
Well, I have loved some fishing in the outdoors where I'm free. It's where I spent my time before I hurt my hip and my knee. When that doctor asked me, son, how'd you get in this condition? I says, hey, Sawbones, I'm just carrying on an old family tradition. I wanna know, Doc, why do you think I got some pain in my joints from years of playing hard in this life that's too short? When that doctor asked me, son, how'd you get in this condition? I says, hey, Sawbones, I'm just carrying on an old family tradition. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Tell me all about it, Doc.